She wasn't going to be here.
Yeah, I thought you said she was going to be out of
That's what I thought.
the country. Yeah.
Great.
Fantastic, yeah. Hello,
I'm
Mr. Walton.
away, but I'll be off video, but I'm here.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
How are you? Welcome.
Thank you.
My name.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All righty. Well, I guess we can get started.
Sorry about that. I was on as a attendee for some reason, but no, I'm out of the country next month, Ginny,
Oh, okay. Okay.
at the end of the month.
Okay. Well, we can get started. So good morning to council members, state policymakers and team members, and members of the public. I'd like to call the April meeting of the Social Equity Council to order. We were notified that Councilwoman Shaw and Councilman Durango are unable to attend. Councilwoman Valeries will hopefully join us a little bit later, so I'll call the roll of the remaining members. Councilwoman Alverio.
Present.
Kyle Abercrombie, designee for Councilman Lehman.
Here.
Councilman Arroyo. Councilman Betts.
Present.
I am here. Councilman Gaddis. Councilwoman Gordon.
I'm here.
Councilman Jefferson.
Present.
Councilwoman Naeem.
Present.
Councilman Shirley.
Present.
Councilman Walton.
Present.
Councilman Pelka.
Good morning, present, thank you.
Sure. Thank you all. So you may notice a couple of new names were mentioned during the roll call. Joseph Williams has resigned from the council. We are grateful for his service and we wish him well. I'm also excited to announce that Kevin Walton has agreed to serve as his replacement on the council. Kevin brings a wealth of experience in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, knowledge that will serve the council well as we work with Director Clay to implement the council's charge. I'm also excited to share that Mark Pelka has been named the designee for the Office of Policy and Management under Secretary Jeff Beckham. Mark has extensive subject matter expertise in the area of criminal justice policy and has focused his work on providing compassion to those involved and engaged with the criminal justice system. So welcome to both of you. We're very happy to have you.
Thank you.
Sure. And so we look forward to working with both of you and all the members of the council as we strive to deliver on the equity pledge that's outlined in the legislation. Since we last met, the State's Bond Commission approved our request for $10 million to provide low interest loans to social equity applicants. So once an applicant receives their provisional license, they'll be able to apply for resource support. Director Clay will provide more information on the process in her report. During this meeting, we'll be discussing the application review process and clarification on the requirements for non-social equity applicant backers. There's been discussion around the requirement of tax returns for those backers and the challenges facing applicants in securing backers as a result. Updates on our outreach, marketing, and accelerator program will also be provided. Although she's not here, I wanted to take a moment to thank Councilwoman Shaw for flagging an issue regarding the verification of applicants to avoid conflicts of interest. As a result of the concern that she raised, there will now be an attestation in the application that requires applicants to certify that they are not related to members of the Social Equity Council as required by statute. I also want to thank the team at DCP for making that possible. Finally, I wanted to share that while we've been receiving license applications for several license types, there have been no social equity applications submitted for the food and beverage manufacturer, product packager, transporter, or hybrid retailer. Food and beverage manufacturers create items for sale to licensed cannabis establishments. Products packagers label and package cannabis products in compliance with state regulations. Transporters deliver cannabis between licensed establishments, and hybrid retailers sell both medical and recreational cannabis products. because state law requires that for every non-social equity license awarded, a social equity license must also be awarded. We're hoping that social equity applicants will consider these license types. Moreover, since it's a lottery, the odds for obtaining one of those licenses is better than for others with more applications. If you are a social equity applicant and you're interested in learning more about those license types, I encourage you to reach out via email to dcp.cannabis@ct.gov or sec@ct.gov. So unless there are questions from any of my council colleagues on anything that I've presented. Seeing none. Oh,
No, I
I'm
have a
sorry,
question.
Councilman Jefferson, yes.
Yeah, good morning, Madam Chair. Is that the lack of these licenses or applications for those licenses, is that consistent across the board? Do you know if it's consistent across the board with other states? Is that a norm or?
That's
and
a
if so,
great
why?
question. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a great question. And I don't know how other states have done in this regard. I will say that I think particularly for the product packager, that's going to be one of those licenses that is going to be maybe a little bit more challenging to do, because ideally you pair with like a small manufacturer perhaps, right? Because they're creating the labeling and the packaging. So that, and the program's a bit unique, and those kinds of credentials are highly specialized.
I see. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay. With that, I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the February 1st, February 17th, and March 1st meetings.
Second, Corey Beck.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, great. From here, I will turn it over to Director Clay for her report.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just gonna, before I start, I'm gonna ask Paige if she could elevate the Cone Resnick team to panelists, because they will be making a presentation today. So if those folks could raise your hand.
Yeah, raise your hands.
I'm gonna get myself together to share my screen. Paige, Meg, yep, I can share. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I hope it's all right. So again, I want to so again, good morning, everyone. First, I want to present a staffing update. I'm very, very excited to welcome our staff attorney, Komla Matreve, who joined us on March 7th. In addition, we have two other folks that will be starting on April 22nd. We have an administrative assistant, Julio Carmona, and our communication and legislative program manager, Christina Diamond, will also join us. We've posted a position, associate accountant. We have received 56 applications for that position, and the Department of Human Resources is in the process of whittling down and checking the qualifications for those applicants. We also have two other positions that have been approved. A fiscal administrative officer, we plan to post that position in the next couple of weeks, and a brand director, and we will post that position as well. We're just finishing up some details, but we're all approved and ready for posting. On the Social Equity Council, Member Jefferson, do you have a question that you'd like me to answer prior?
I do, but do you prefer if we withhold questions until you're finished?
If it's related to staffing, I'm happy to answer.
It is related to staffing. I just need could you just provide us with an explanation as to what those staff positions entail, like the associate accountant and the fiscal administrator? And I kind of understand what a brand director would do, but I like to hear it from you.
Yeah, so we have, as you know, we have about 4 accounts that the council is going to be responsible for. And so those folks, those accounting positions will be the folks that will be paying close attention to the accounts and managing the accounts with the Department of Economic and Community Development.
Okay.
And then the administrative assistant, of course, will be supporting the staff of the Social Equity Council, and the communications and legislative program manager will be the person who follows and tracks legislation and all of our legislative endeavors.
The fiscal administrative officer?
Fiscal administrative officer will also be responsible for the accounting and our accounts that the Social Equity Council has.
And the brand director?
The brand director will be working on our brand, managing our social media. And so we've hired, we're going to hire a firm to get it going. And then we're going to have someone who will be following that. And it will be their responsibility to maintain the website, the social media links, the, our logo, just all of our branding, creating materials, handouts, information.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Executive Director. And I too want to welcome Attorney Matrevi.
Yeah. Okay. We
Thank you,
on the
Councilmember.
okay on our work plan. So the things that the staff and I are working on, we have just completed the draft of the social equity application review and verification process. So Cohn Resnick was the firm hired to complete that process, and they will be making a presentation to the council today during the policy committee report. We have completed a marketing and outreach RFP. And you will see that we have a schedule that we are following right now. We're in the process of reviewing the proposals that have been sent in. The review committee consists of Chairwoman Comer, council members or co-chairs, Alverio and Gordon. They both co-chair the outreach committee, and myself. We're in the process of doing the reviews of the proposals that have been submitted. On the 7th, we plan to have a conversation to discuss which firms we will interview. We will hold those interviews on the 11th and 12th, and then on the 13th, we will make a selection to make a recommendation to the outreach committee. Once the committee approves or recommends the firm, that firm will make a presentation to the full council. We expect that to happen in May, the May meeting. We have completed a draft of the Accelerator Rfp, which was sent out to all council members for comment. The schedule for that RFP tentatively is we want to release the RFP on the 11th. We want those who are planning to respond to the RFP to send us a letter of intent. Any questions by the 22nd of April, questions answered by the 29th, and proposals will be due on May 5th. And again, that is a proposed schedule for the council to agree to. In addition, we are working on a low interest loan program. As Chairwoman Comer mentioned, the Bond Commission at its March 31st meeting approved $10 million for the Social Equity Council to create a fund that will provide low interest loans to those social equity applicants getting a provisional license and helping them to stand up their business. We are in the process now of determining eligibility, use of funds, and just really putting the program together. It will be a brand new program. In addition, our attorney, Matrevi, has hit the ground running, and he is in the process of drafting bylaws policies and procedures, and working very closely with the governance and policy committees to create those bylaws and policies and procedures. We already have a couple of policy kind of recommendations that will be coming before the council today, so you will have a sampling of his good work. Lunch and Learn series continues. It has been a very, very successful series for us. Having very limited resources at this time. We had a lunch and learn with Marcus Williams, who is a cannabis business owner out of Springfield, and he provided some information on kind of what happens once you get your license and your business is up and running, and some of those best practices for running a cannabis business. We did a lunch and learn yesterday. It was a great lunch and learn overview, license types and fees and application with Rod Marriott from the Department of Consumer Protection. We have some coming up. We have a business plan overview, marketing best practices, access to capital and funding for your cannabis business. And then we're going to have a really good webinar for backers and investors and what they need to know for getting involved in the cannabis industry. So webinar information from February and March, we had about 149 people attend webinars since that time. We've had over 1,200 YouTube views. So we have a YouTube, and every webinar that we do is recorded, and then it's posted on YouTube for people to look at their leisure. We've responded to over 590 questions during those webinars, and we now have a mailing list of 256, and that grows every day. Every time we send out more information on the webinars, we get requests from individuals to be placed on our mailing list, and we send them updated information on the council and the council's activities and the application process. We mentioned a little bit earlier, Chairwoman Comer mentioned the number of applications that have been submitted, so I wanted to provide you with a little bit more information on that. I did send a link to each council member that you can find this chart on the DCP website. This is updated every Thursday. So if you want to know how many applications are coming in, this is what we have as of last Thursday. So in the social equity lottery, we have 3 delivery, 4 micro cultivator, 8 retailer. We have no food and beverage. We have 1 product manufacturer. We have no product packers. I think I spelled that wrong, sorry. We have 11 retail, none in the transport, and none in the hybrid retailer. And then you can see what we have in the general lottery. We are going to, I know Chairwoman Comer reached out to a couple of specialty organizations, and we will continue to look for organizations that might be able to spread the word as far as those areas that we do not have any applications for. So we'll reach out to the Specialty Food Association and Restaurant Association and others. So we're looking for resources in that area. And if any council member has any information that could be helpful, we're happy to reach out at your recommendation and suggestion to different organizations. And that is my report. If anyone has any questions, I can't see all of the council members, but if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them.
Thank you, Director Clay. I just have 2, well, a question and a comment, I suppose. On your presentation, you said that there were 149 attendees, but your slide said 549. I just wanted to make sure we knew which one.
I'm sorry. I called
It's okay.
Jennifer Smith yesterday, and I don't even know what Jennifer Smith. So my brain is not
Okay.
working that well. Let me go back. But yeah, it's over. It was. I think it's 549.
Okay, great.
Here it is.
Thank
Yep.
you.
So we had 549 attendees.
Okay, fantastic. And just a flag for the public and the council members. The cultivator license applications are not listed in that link, nor are the equity joint venture applications. I know that we probably may have some folks who are attending who have submitted applications for those types, and just wanted to let them know that we know that you're there. It's just not posted in on that section of the site.
Hi, everyone. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I don't know if I missed this. How many applications have gone in for the SEC? So the cultivator, I think that's what you were talking about, Andrea.
Yeah, that's it. That's
Do
what I
we-
was.
Yeah,
At
do
this-
we have a number? Do we have a
We
number
don't have-
yet? I guess that's. the
Yeah, we
question.
don't have a
Okay.
number as of yet. The number submitted will be provided when the application window closes.
And so we were able to see these ones because they're just submitting for the lottery.
Correct.
They haven't really submitted an application. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm. Any other
Member
questions?
Pelka, I think I see Member Pelka's name, hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the work done on the website to list information like this, which is nearly live. It's very helpful for a new member like me to get caught up, and I imagine those interested in entering the market to track. I was just wondering if Director Clay has any insights regarding challenges of sort of attracting product packers or food and beverage, transporter, hybrid retailers from any of the lunch and learns or any of the live events you've organized. Has there been any input provided from participants that might yield any insights into what factors could be contributing? I know you've been really investing effort into attracting more applications in those areas. And I wondered if we've gleaned anything from these outreach efforts that you're undertaking.
Some of the, and when we're getting the question, so that we have been stressing to people to take their time to submit their applications and make sure that they are submitting a comprehensive application, because there will be little or no interaction once your application has been submitted. So as we get a little closer to the deadline, and we still have webinars that are going on and people are still providing folks with information, but we will, again, as I mentioned and Chairwoman Comer mentioned, we are making efforts to reach out to organizations that may have folks that may be interested to spread the word, that may not have heard, that may think they can't do this, and we will encourage them to participate.
Thank you very much for that detail. I appreciate it.
And we do have, we're going to be selecting a firm to do more marketing, and I think that's going to go pretty quickly to get that firm on board and just get some, gets a wider breadth of people and a wider audience to provide information.
Thank you.
Director Clay, one other question. There are two lines that say retailer, and I'm not sure the distinction. I was hoping you could clarify that.
Yeah, so I actually took this right from the DCP website, and there's a retailer and then there's a hybrid retailer. And I believe the hybrid retailers are the dispensaries that are converted.
Right, so you've got,
Yep.
yeah, but you've got a hybrid retailer and then you've got two lines for retailer. So that's why I'm seeking clarity.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I will, yeah, I will get clarity. I'm not sure how that happened.
Okay.
All right, I will clarify that.
Yeah, I do see on the site that the retailer is at 11 and for the non-social equity applications and general lottery is at 140. So maybe it was an updating issue.
I think it might have been. My
Okay.
apologies. Okay,
No
thank you
worries.
for that.
Sure. Councilwoman Gordon.
Yeah, thank you. I also wanted to understand, I know we've had this conversation a million times, so I apologize, but the difference between delivery service and transporter, because those two things seem like, I know they're not the same thing, but I guess I was just wondering what the differences are, and maybe individuals who are applying for delivery service could also be applying for transporter, or is it completely different in the requirements?
Sure. So my understanding is that a transporter is licensed to sell between establishments, whereas a delivery service can deliver to consumers.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Director Clay.
Thank you.
Um, the Workforce Committee Chair, Valerie, is attending another meeting. So with the council's agreement, I'll move her committee updates down the list. Finance Committee Chair Shaw, as I mentioned, was unable to join us today, but she asked that I provide the following updates from her committee. The Finance Committee last met on March 17th. The committee discussed an SEC request submitted by Director Clay on our behalf for an allocation of $10 million in bond funds for the purpose of funding low interest loans, as was discussed previously. The $10 million is part of the $50 million total that was authorized by the legislature for cannabis-related loans and technical assistance. The remaining authorization may be used for similar loans to municipalities and nonprofits, as well as expenses associated with workforce training programs. Director Clay will keep the Finance Committee advised of the pace of how these funds are allocated so that requests for additional funds can be submitted in a timely manner to the governor's office. Each committee lead is asked to keep Director Clay abreast of developments that may require funding so that she and members of the Finance Committee can ensure there are resources in place for each phase of the SEC's work. And finally, the Finance Committee agreed that there were no recommendations to the full council that requires action today. So I thank her for sharing those updates. The next up is the Policy Committee. Councilman Shirley, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Policy Committee has been working with Director Clay and with Attorney Matravy and the accounting firm of Cohn-Resnick to develop the process by which the council will determine eligibility of social equity applicants. And I believe, Director Clay, that we have Cohn-Resnick here to make a presentation to the council.
We do, sir.
So what we're going to do is have Cohn-Resnick present the process by which we're going to propose that the council vote on and accept, and then we would propose that also Cohn-Resnick be the firm that we use to implement the process that the council has developed over time. So with that, I'd like Director Clay, shall we have Cohn-Resnick present?
Absolutely. So welcome to Serona and Jeffrey. I don't know if it's just the two of you today, and Ray. So Ray, turn your camera on. These guys have done an amazing job in working with us to create this process. And I hope that the council will be just as impressed as the Policy Committee and I have been in working with them. So without further ado, Jeffrey or Serona, I don't know which one of you want to take the lead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make brief introductions on our team. Thank you, Director Clay. I know you mentioned us. While I'm doing that, I believe Serona has a presentation, so I don't know if she has access to share, but if we can make sure that she does have that ability. Good morning, council members, and again, Director Clay. My name is Jeffrey McGowan. I'm a senior manager with Cohn-Resnick. On the line here, I have with me my colleague Serona Sadeh, a manager with us as well, and Ray Kissaday, another manager. So without further ado, I know Serona has a presentation. If we can go ahead and share that on our screen and we can get started.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for your time today. If you just give me 1 second to try and share my screen. I'm not sure I have the ability.
Paige, can you?
Serona, if you hit share screen.
I don't, oh, there we go. Just showed up. Okay. Okay, everybody can see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And just as a little tidbit, I think that Ray is having some trouble with his camera, so that's why he wasn't able to turn it on. But Ray, we'd be happy to see you whenever, if that gets working for you. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for having us today. It is my understanding that you all received a copy of this presentation. So as we move through it, please don't hesitate to ask questions, raise your hands. We can make this a dialogue, and you don't have to wait until we're finished to get those comments and questions in. So essentially what we are presenting here is an overview of the life cycle of an application. So kind of the timeline from inception until it is then the social equity piece of it is completed and recorded. And so we have these 5 steps that we are outlining, as well as a few details within the social equity component and the review that we'll kind of go through in a little bit more detail. So the first piece of it, self-explanatory, the application is submitted via the portal on the DCP website, and it is received initially by the Department of Consumer Protection. This is where it enters the lottery, and it is selected for further review on the social equity piece. Once the applications that will go through social equity review are selected, the Department of Consumer Protection will upload that to a SharePoint site that we set up, and we'll show you some screenshots of that here momentarily. And that is how it will be received by us, by the CohnReznick team, and how it will begin to undergo review. So I'm going to have Jeffrey just kind of give a little bit of a briefing on what this SharePoint site really does for us.
Thanks, Serona. So what we have here is the basic landing page of where the applications are going to be uploaded by DCP members. So this site is accessible by the CohnReznick review team, DCP designated staff, and CTSEC designated staff as well. So the DCP staff will upload the application within the upload library identified by the number 1 there, step 1. Once they upload that, it will be we have workflows in the background that have it set up so that the application and certain data is entered within the application list as shown here. Above the top here, outlined in red, are various data points and fields that we are going to be reviewing, checking, pulling from the application in order to provide information, which we'll see in a slide, a couple of slides from now, more specific data that we can return to SEC staff in order to see how the reviews are going, trends and analysis that can be performed, just a wide variety of information to help facilitate this. I do want to make a note that everything that you're going to see here on the slides for the SharePoint site, this is all sample data. So this isn't anything, application specific to any particular one. On the bottom there, we'll see in a couple slides, but for instance, this ACCE 02 test application I have highlighted in brown there as being, denied. We're going to see how that shows up. We have various reporting that is based off of this information. So everything that we're doing in terms of the review is going to be data driven that can then be passed on to SEC staff and ultimately council members if any review or decisions need to be made in the future. And I'll turn it back over to Serona.
Sure, and I'll actually pause there and see if anybody has any questions. All right, awesome. Let's keep going. So essentially, once an application is entered into SharePoint, it is then, in the jurisdiction of and this is kind of where the review and I'll kick it over to Ray to through specifics of the review, which include, the tools that we've built to look at the application. So we'll start with.
So at this point, after we've received applications from DCP and they've been uploaded to our SharePoint, once they're complete, we would begin our review. So we created a couple different resources just to aid in the review process, make it a consistent and easily duplicated process. So what we're looking at currently is the social equity qualification checklist. You see at the top of the screen, you see the applicant specific information, the applicant name, the business type, social equity applicant, license type. And then below that, you see the different social equity requirements. So the residency requirement, income requirement, ownership and control requirement. And then to the right of each requirement, you see the specific documentation that needs to be verified to meet that requirement. So what the reviewers would be doing is they would be checking whether they verified that particular document or requirement. And then the source verification, what type of documentation was provided and reviewed to verify that. And then the reviewer would then be determining whether that documentation provided would make that applicant eligible or ineligible. Any additional notes that would be helpful for another reviewer would be entered to the right of that. And this would be then sent over to the council after we completed our review, in addition to other documents.
So essentially, it is the tool that the reviewer will use for every application to document all their review, the things that they've looked at, any observations they've made, and the qualifications that meet the select.
So in addition to, well, this is another tab on the checklist to determine whether the social equity applicant meets the income requirement. So we have the 3 most recent years of income, which would be 2020, 2019, 2018, and then multiple household members, depending on the applicant's household. The reviewer would then be inputting based on the income documentation provided by the applicant, the total household income for each member. And if in any of the years in total, if the total household income is, if it exceeds 300% of the state median income, as we can see in this example, that would make the social equity applicant ineligible. So we see in 2019, household member 1 earned 200,000, and then household member 2 earned 30,000. This 300% of the state median income is 235,332. For 2019, that's not, it doesn't exceed that amount. However, in 2020, we see that the total household income is 245,000. So because they exceed that 300% in 1 year, the social equity applicant would then be ineligible.
Sarah is asking where to find this checklist. So an example of this checklist in this PowerPoint was provided to Director Clay, and I believe was kind of distributed to the council. And we also have provided the Excel, the checklist. So those things are
Serona? Hi, just a question. This is Marilyn. Because you're cutting in and out, so it's kind of hard to hear when you speak. So this checklist is, you said it was provided to Director Clay. Is it also on the website?
It is. I don't believe it is yet on the website, but I'll defer to Director Clay on that.
Oh, okay. Because this is a question where, I mean, you know, I get this question all the time, and I know that it's come through a lot, like from the very beginning, you know, when people were trying to calculate whether or not they qualify and whether or not they're going to go through the whole process and then, you know, be $2,000 over. That was a big concern. So this chart that you're providing is very helpful.
Yes, actually, I apologize. So we created an income calculator that can be shared, and that's kind of separate than the internal one that we'll use in conjunction with.
Yeah, again, you're cutting in and out.
I think there's interference from Ray. Maybe
yeah.
Ray can mute, and that'll help.
Yeah. But this visual is I understand there's a calculator, but this visual is very helpful.
Mm-hmm. And what I was saying before, in case anybody didn't catch it, is we did also create an income calculator that can be shared with the public. We kind of put in some instructions and blocked out, you know, locked some of the cells so that certain data cannot be changed, but then made it clear where the inputs can be made. And so it's pretty easy to use. I'm not sure, we shared that with Director Clay. Yeah, I think it should be ready to be used. All right, let's keep going. Any other questions on the application checklist or the income calculator? Awesome. Let's next screen. So essentially, after CohnReznick or the vendor completes their review of an application, we will then prepare a memo that kind of makes a recommendation on what we reviewed. It will provide a summary of the documentation we reviewed, any observations, the criteria that was met, and what criteria in particular helped meet the certain qualifications of social equity status. And then we will provide that to Director Clay and her staff. In addition, we will provide a report, as Jeffrey was talking about earlier, which will kind of summarize what is happening in the program. So it will show things like number of applications received and reviewed, categorized by the type of license, number that were recommended for approval, recommended for social equity status, the number that were recommended as not eligible for social equity status. You know, other metrics that we can gather from that SharePoint list, which includes, you know, zip codes, it includes types of businesses. So there's a plethora of reports that can be generated from that. And this is just a screenshot of that memo that we would prepare. This is also provided in the package that was provided to the council, not as a screenshot, so you can actually see the entire form. And then the next screen is an example of the reports that would be provided. So you can see here in the first in the first one, we see the different types of applications that are under review and their status. So if we've received it, if it's currently in review, approved, denied for social equity. Up here at the top, so for any denials or any that are recommended as ineligible, we'll provide a list of, not a list, I'm sorry, a summary of the types of issues we've encountered. So what are we really seeing? Are people not meeting the income criteria? Is it an ownership issue? Are they being denied for more than one reason? So that just kind of gives you a little bit more insight on what's happening. And then we also wanted to provide an example of the data we can pull on zip code. So where are these businesses happening? Where are these establishments taking place throughout the state? And so we can kind of summarize that data. And this is, as Jeffrey was saying before, this is all fake information. So just for demonstration purposes. And then Jeffrey, if you want to explain a little bit about some of the tools that we use to provide the reporting.
Sure. So this is a screenshot of some Power BI reporting that we can set up depending on what the needs of the SEC staff are at any given time. But so what we're entering into SharePoint as we review the applications, that data can be pulled into a number of different visualization tools. And here's an example of one that we've put together. And it shows, as you can see here, based on the number of applications having been, sent to us for review, we can show and slice through the different statuses to see how many have been received. It can cut and cross through by type, whether they were lottery or non-lottery applications. And also, as you can see below on the bottom there, if based on a selection above or a total without a selection, you can see the different applications. I had mentioned ACC 02 test, and you can see the recommendation is that it be denied. It passed income, it passed residency, but it failed ownership and control, determination there. So this is, like I said, a sample of what we can do. And then based on a number of the fields that we're gathering that information. Oh, here's a screenshot of that being sliced through. So you can see that, you select the denied one, you can see it is a cultivator. It was a non-lottery, and the reason it was recommended for ineligibility and denial is it failed the ownership and control portion. So, based on the information within the applications, we can pull more comprehensive reports for the SEC in terms of, as Serona mentioned, by zip code. We can set up heat maps if needed to kind of better visualize, where the state is receiving applications, what impacted areas, things of that nature. So just wanted to provide some examples there of how we can take the information that the SEC is receiving and better make decisions and shape the program as necessary.
I have a question. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So is there any thought to including, as it relates to qualifications, an applicant that may have lived 100 yards out of a DIA? And because, and perhaps we already had this conversation and I missed it, because that seems to be something that has come up on a number of occasions. And that would then throw them into a disqualification category here. They would be not denied automatically. So is there any consideration to that?
The way we set up our process was within the constraints of the DIA. In terms of expanding that, I would have to defer to SEC staff and Director Clay with expanding that out. That wasn't in our
Right.
We were, basing that off of the recommendations of the SEC and what has already been established through the program. So,
Okay. Yeah,
Comler,
and I'm aware of that. I'm just, And I know there's a couple hands up, so maybe some of my colleagues could answer the question.
Chairman Shirley?
Thank you. Yeah, and I had a similar question with regard to income. I'm sure just as Councilwoman Alvaro indicated, there'll be issues with regard to proximity to DIA, and as you say, I live half a block away, and also I would think that there same thing with income. I've got 1 year where I was $50 over the limit, and that's no longer the case. But I think the answer is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director Clay, there is, once they're deemed ineligible, there is redress with the court. I've forgotten which court, but there is an opportunity for redress, not by us, but there is a process by which they can state an applicant can state its claim. Director Clay, we've talked about this in the past, that's why I'm asking you.
Yes, sir. So if someone wants to contest their denial as a social equity applicant, you will not have the opportunity to file a complaint with the council. Your complaint must be filed with the Superior Court. And in answering your question, Councilwoman Alvario, if you live 100 yards from the DIA, you are still not qualified, you're not eligible. So we're not taking kind of, there's no provision in the Public Act that says, but if you're if you're 500 feet, if your neighbor is there, there is no provision there. So this is truly a pass fail. Either you are qualified by definition or you are not.
And if I may, because of that, because when I think it was our first meeting where we voted on the disproportionately impacted areas, we do have the opportunity to perhaps alter the definition and re-examine how you define a social equity applicant. That has to be done through the legislation. Of course, we submitted our recommendations for this legislative session, but that's not a one bite at the apple type of thing. So we will have another opportunity.
I see Councilwoman Gordon has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. These are really good questions. I had I guess it's kind of a processy question. Say someone is denied based on, first let me just say, this is excellent. I think this was really well done, really well put together. And I think I understand so much more today than I did before I walked into this meeting. But what if someone gets denied and it was user error? So like, for example, they put the application in and it flagged that it's denied based on the backers or the makeup of any number of things, but it was an error on the application on their side. So not like they did something wrong or they made a mistake. Is there any recourse? So not having to go through the court system, but if it's flagged, is there a timeline for which we're giving applicants, if they flag that it was a mistake, to fix it and still stay within that that time period? Or if they made an error, are they just automatically disqualified for this application time? Or are we thinking about, I understand the qualifications piece being completely black and white, up or down, but I'm just wondering if there's any wiggle room for, like, for example, if you apply for a mortgage and they come back and they said, hey, these things aren't right, and you can say, well, actually, that was an error on my credit report, right? Like those kinds of things. I'm just wondering, how are we planning on handling like the gray area, squishy, made a mistake, what's my opportunity to fix it?
So if they submit an application and that application has a user error, because this is a lottery period, if they are disqualified, they are disqualified and they would have to reapply for the next lottery round.
And is that set in stone, or is that something that we as a council can have any opinion on, or DCP? The only reason I'm asking this, I'm thinking about, I know this is a business and I know that we're setting up the market, but I also know that like our goal is to help disadvantaged communities. And a part of that goes on to think about literacy and like access to just a number of things. I'm for the social equity applications, specifically those for like the smaller business type. I don't remember. I know we're thinking about putting in the accelerator and like the process through which to help people. But is there a place that when this is all said and done, will we, not us at the council, but will Ginny Ray's office or someone be helping those individuals just to make sure they did everything correctly, spelled everything the way they were supposed to spell it, didn't make an error in somewhere or another before they enter and make that final push and hit send?
So we are encouraging people, as we said before, to be very deliberate in filling out their application and completing their application. I know that Ginny Ray hosts office hours. If people have questions during the process of the application, the 2 email addresses are available. But I think that if you begin to start having ambiguity around whether or not someone qualifies, it has the potential to disrupt the entire process. So that's why we are encouraging people to have that support available. I know in addition to the council and Ginny Ray's efforts, there are also entities in the community that are helping folks with the application process. Director Clay?
Yeah, I also, oh geez, I just forgot what I was gonna say. Oh gosh, I'll come back, I'll remember. I'm sorry, it just fell right out of my head.
Maybe I can clarify my question. So what if like you transpose the zip code by accident? That's the kind of thing that I'm asking. Like, say for example, your zip code is 06708 and you put in 06807. Like those are the kinds of errors that I'm asking about. And then it would flag, okay, your address made you ineligible. And you're like, no, my address did make me eligible, right? Like those are the kinds of things I'm asking. So not to be, I agree with you that we need to be pretty strict, black or white, with qualification. But I guess my question is, if like simple errors on the application, it seems as if, I think in many other industries like that, like you have an opportunity if there was an error to fix it. And it feels like what we're doing is pretty hard or fast in, like you can't come back and say, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. My zip code is actually 06708, not 06807, right? So that's the kind of question I'm asking. So not to get,
Right,
not to change the qualification.
Right, and the answer is actually still the same. We can't perform a pre-clearance of documents. So someone, if they are disqualified, they could enter the general lottery, and this is why they're provided with 90 days.
Yeah, I have my comment too. I wanted to let you know that we have asked CohnReznick that if they get to a portion, so there's 3 criteria. If they get to the income and the applicant is disqualified because of income, we have asked that they review the whole application to see if there's other areas of the application that they were deficient. We will then, once we send, and if the application does not get approved, we will send a letter of denial, and we will be prepared to tell them why they did not qualify. So if they want to reapply, they will know what the error was. And so it's not just, well, how did I do in the residency part? Did I pass that? Well, yes, you did, or no, you didn't, or this is why your application, and they will review the whole application. So I hope that will be helpful to those folks that get disqualified or are not approved. They will understand where their deficiency was.
Thank you, Director Clay. Chairman Shirley?
Thank you. I was just thinking, Serona, it might be helpful if you once again could go through the sequence of the data and where does it start? When do you get it? And from there, where do you pass it on?
Sure. Yeah, we can, we'll go over that timeline again. And actually we're close to the end. So the next slide, we'll see it come through again. But basically where we are in right now in the process is that the review has been completed on an application. A recommendation has been made, and in conjunction with that, a report is provided to director. And from there, the SEC is responsible for making the final determination on social equity status using the information provided by CohnReznick or the vendor. And that is when a true approval or denial for social equity status is made and sent to the applicant, as Director Clay was just kind of outlining. So once that happens, the last step really is that it goes to DCP, for final recording, and any applications that were denied social equity status are communicated so that additional applications can be go through the lottery and sent back for review so that we can meet that 50% license. So to recap, I think the piece that really is kind of like the meat of it is kind of this middle social equity council and vendor step. So application comes in, it goes through the lottery, it is then uploaded to the SharePoint where we can retrieve it. We begin our review. Once we receive all the documentation, we begin our review. We review the application for residency requirements, income requirements, ownership and control requirements. So we review all of the documentation provided by the applicant for those qualifications. We document the results of our review in a recommendation memo that is sent back to Social Equity Director in conjunction with a biweekly report that summarizes, the last 2 weeks of reviews, where what the data is telling us in terms of the actual process flow, but then also the content of the applications. Then the Social Equity Council makes a final determination, notifies the applicant, and then notifies DCP for kind of final record keeping. Chairman Turley, is there something I should kind of go back and emphasize?
No, I think that's what I had in mind. Thank you.
Sure. And this concludes our presentation. I appreciate everybody's contribution. Are there any other questions or details we should kind of go back and chat about? Councilman Gordon, your hand is still up. I was wondering if that's a new question or just left over from before.
Oh, one other point, please, that I know I asked about this at our last meeting, in terms of information that is redacted before you get it, just so we all know, the status of the information that that you would receive in this process for eligibility determination.
I don't think I have a lot of context on that piece in particular. Director Clay, can you provide any insight on that?
Yes, so the DCP and Chairwoman Comer can confirm this, but it is my understanding that the DCP will redact identifying information, that CohnReznick will not have any more information than the council will have. So names, addresses, there'll be some other information that may not be relevant to verifying social equity status that will be taken out. So we won't have names of applicants. We'll have just the innards of the application.
That's correct.
Wonderful. All right, well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Serona. Thank you, Cone Resnick, for a really great job you did in determining, putting together the process by which eligibility will be determined. Madam Chair, at this point, is this where the policy committee would ask for a resolution or a proposal to accept what's been presented by Cone Resnick?
Well, excuse me, Madam Chair, we made the recommendation already, I believe, Chairman Shirley, regarding this. We had this at the policy committee. We had the same presentation and we made the recommendation, a favorable recommendation, and to bring that favorable recommendation to the full council. So I guess the vote would be on that, wouldn't it be?
Yeah,
Councilman Jefferson, that's correct. To accept both the policy committee's recommendation that Cone Resnick would be engaged to provide the be the verifier of the social equity applicants.
Okay, so at this point, I would like to have a motion to accept Cone Resnick as the vendor, which would provide us with the information for our determination of eligibility of social equity applicants.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Is there a question?
Any further discussion?
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Any opposed or abstentions? Great. Thank you very much. Madam Chair, I think that's it for the policy committee.
I think Member Walton had a question. He had.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think
You're
that's an
muted.
extension.
And you're muted, sir.
And I was abstaining from the vote.
Okay, sorry. We have one abstention.
Thank you, Councilman Shirley. The other piece I believe that the policy committee had considered were around definitions, and particularly and the requirements, the criteria for backers. There was a conversation around the requirement of tax returns for non-social equity applicant backers. Right, that was in a discussion we had with Attorney Matravy. I think is that to what you're referring to, Madam Chair? Yes, that was also brought up at the policy committee meeting, unless I'm mistaken. No, you're right. So and there was a recommendation regarding that. So I don't know if Director Clay, if Attorney Matravy is going to present on that.
Yes, he is prepared to present, and I would like, again, to welcome Attorney Matravy. And Komla, if you're ready.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for giving me the floor. So the recommendation we're talking about is Public Act 21-1 did not clearly and spelled out that the social equity backer should provide the tax return. What happened is on our website, we put up a checklist. In that checklist, it shows that the social equity applicant backer was required to submit 3 years of tax return documents. Now, we've received questions from the public and concern about this document, questions from social equity applicants who expressed the hesitation from potential investors to back them up because of this requirement. And after reviewing the statute, since the statute, especially in section 145, did not ask for the social equity applicant backer to submit the tax return, we recommended to the policy committee to consider discussion on updating this checklist so that that requirement be removed. Now, I understand that some people have already submitted this document. Because it is now required, this document should not, the proposal is that this document should not be reviewed to determine eligibility as a backer. So those who have already submitted will not be hurt because they've submitted it, and those who have not yet submitted don't have to submit it. That is the correction or clarification that we are asking the council to consider. I yield.
Thank you, Attorney Matravy. So the point was that it would appear that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Director Clay, it would appear that that requirement hindered some social equity applicants in getting the backers to participate with them. They didn't want to show their tax return. And so given what Attorney Matravy just said, what we were proposing is that we remove that requirement from the requirement as it now exists.
Correct.
So the policy committee agreed to make that proposal to the full council.
Want to make that a motion?
Yes.
Have some questions and discussion on it?
Yes. So may I get a motion, please, to that effect, that we remove the requirement for tax returns from 3 years of tax returns from the for backers.
So moved.
Second.
So are there questions or discussions?
I see Councilwoman Valerie has her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a concern as to how we're going to verify the ability for the backers in their financial stability and efficacy of their organizations if we don't look at their tax returns. Is there any other way that we're going to be able to qualify them as being able to fulfill their financial obligations?
Attorney Matravy, did you want to answer that?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Madam Council Member. So under section, and I would like to share my screen if you allow. So this is the provision of section 145C, which lay out what's basically needed from the social equity backer. It says the dispensary facility or social equity applicant of an equity joint venture shall submit to the Social Equity Council information including, but not limited to, the organizing documents of the entity that outline the ownership stake of each backer, initial backer investment, and payout information to enable the council to determine the terms of ownership. That's what the statute says. Now, based on this provision and many other provisions in the statute that lay out the requirement for a list of documents was created, and I'm going to share this document with you. This document is also available on our website. This is just an amended version which will remove the tax return requirement for the backer. So on this document, there are several pieces of document that will show, such as the operating agreement of the business that is applying, or the partnership agreement. This document will lay out clearly the ownership stake so that we are able to see what the social equity applicant is getting out of this agreement and what the backer is bringing into this agreement. So with all these options, and during their presentation, Kuhn Resnick will be looking at this document, and in their expertise as accountants, they will be reviewing this document, which will be submitted by the social equity applicant and the backers in order to determine whether the backer has met the requirement or not. So there is no real concern that without the task document, we won't have access to the information that we need. The task document also creates other concerns that if by collecting them, we will be more responsible for the privacy of requirements that are linked to this document. So since it's not necessary for the Social Equity Council to be able to review the task document, it's just not worth collecting because of the burden that it will put on the council and the likelihood of litigation also that may eventually cause in the future, and the hesitation that is creating among the backers community to really step forward and disclose their private tax return to the basically to the council for the purpose of making a deal in the cannabis industry. I yield.
Councilman Gaddis?
You're muted.
Councilman Gaddis?
So we're saying we want to eliminate the submittal of 3 years worth of tax returns for backers. Is that
Yes,
what the proposal is?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not going to
Yes,
support that.
Councilmember.
I'm not going to support that. Listen, these backers should be very sophisticated. If they go for a bank loan or another financial instrument, they're going to need to submit tax returns and a bunch of documents. I don't understand why this is going to be treated any differently. And we need to make sure people aren't gaming the situation. That's why the tax return requirement is included. Tax returns tell a story, a very vivid story if you know how to analyze them. And I think this is not a prudent thing or wise thing to do to eliminate the tax returns for backers. I mean, and I don't want to say anything about money laundering, but at the end of the day, we need to be able to verify where this money is coming from and how they attain the money. And tax returns, I mean, listen, you send those tax returns to the biggest gangsters in town, the IRS, and tax returns are good information. And I don't think we should be making this easy for folks. Listen, if they don't want to submit the returns, just don't participate. That's really all I have to say about it.
Thank you, Councilman Gaddis. Other questions or comments?
I would just add to that, with regards to having the burden of holding the tax returns, if Kuhn Resnick is going to be doing some of these, is doing the initial reviews, that's what they do. They look at tax returns on a regular basis and they hold them in confidentiality. So I think that we can easily find a way around it. I don't think any of us council members want to be reviewing and looking at those tax returns ourselves, but having an organization like Kuhn Resnick, who that's what they do day in and day out, is an appropriate way to handle those tax returns.
Councilwoman Gordon.
I have to say, I agree with Councilman Gaddis on this one. I'm not comfortable with not looking at the full, or not me, but the full financial picture of backers being like that I feel like for any other, the same questions I was asking about business ventures before about like being recourse and changes. I think this is one that I'm not okay with loosening our requirements for the backers, which are going to be the money behind some of the social equity applications. So I don't think I can support that as well.
Councilman Jefferson.
Yeah, this could be harmful for the very people we're trying to support. So I need to understand from our attorney, do you believe this without the tax returns, we can still get a whole picture of what the backer is about financially? Do you think we could, do you think it's necessary for us to have the tax returns, or can we substitute those returns for other items and criteria that we're looking for? Because I'm concerned if our folks cannot find a backer, they're out of the game. Never mind the backer, we can't even support the people that we're trying to support. So help me understand and help the council understand why it's not necessarily that important for us to have those documents.
Thank you, Councilmember Jefferson. So I would like to point out that it's not just the hesitation of the backers who may not decide to get involved with social equity applicants. We have to consider the statute. Did the legislature clearly want the Social Equity Council to be doing more? I understand the concern of Councilmember Gaddis, who pointed out the possibility of money laundering, being able to trace the source of the funds and all of that. But is that the primary purpose of the Social Equity applicant? I mean, the Social Equity Council? I think those are the main concern. There are other agencies that are involved in this process, mainly the Department of Consumer Protection. Now, the Social Equity Council is simply reviewing the social equity applicant to determine that this individual qualify for a criteria. That's all it is. Now, about the other concerns, when it gets to the actual licensing and all of that, the Department of Consumer Protection can have other requirements there. But when it comes to the Social Equity Council, I believe we need to focus on what is the main purpose of the Social Equity Council, which is basically to evaluate criteria to determine who qualify as a social equity applicant, who qualify as a social equity backer or not. So if we start by going and reviewing these documents, there will never be an end to what the council will be doing in the future. That's how I'm trying to see it. So we've heard from the public. We didn't come out of our own to be able to recommend this to the council. We've heard from the public. Social equity applicants have been submitting questions. Backers have been contacting our office about this requirement. I understand that for some loan, they have to submit all these requirements, but for the Social Equity Council, it is not the primary mission of this council to pursue. Yeah, it is not the primary mission of the Social Equity Council to be pursuing more transparency in overall business. The Department of Consumer Protection has the tools and the staff available to do most of that work. And I believe they do some of that already. So my recommendation will be for the Social Equity Council to focus on the primary mission assigned by the legislature, which is to review the backers the social equity applicant for the basic criteria that have been laid out clearly in the legislature, so that we don't find ourselves on basically a goose chase, because that will be resource consuming for the council, and it will just open the door for so many litigation in the future. I yield.
Thank you. Councilwoman Shaw.
Good morning, fellow council members, and I apologize for my delay. I was attending to another important body, state body, the Municipal Accountability Review Board. With that said, I just want to take issue, with all due respect, to the advice given that the primary mission of the Social Equity Council is not to pursue transparency, if I may paraphrase our council. It would strike me that there is an obligation to ensure that there is the exercise of some qualitative assessment and discernment of the matters before the council. We have had the benefit of advice from an assistant attorney general regarding the scope of the Social Equity Council's role. I do believe that the concerns expressed about ensuring that we have transparency around the structure of these equity joint ventures is squarely within the purview of this council's work. It is explicitly set out in the enabling legislation, and I don't think that we can abdicate the plain and unambiguous language of that authorizing statute. So with that said, I don't think that this requirement of disclosure of tax returns is unduly burdensome. I think that given the points that Dr. Valeris has pointed out, we can assure discretion and confidentiality. State entities do that all the time with this type of information. So I would urge that we lean back on the advice that we've received around the scope of this council's responsibilities. And I certainly think that it is imperative that we have confidence in the structure and financial arrangements that support these equity joint ventures.
Councilman Shirley.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate what Attorney Matrevi said. When we considered this proposal, and it was brought before us that backers were hesitant to show this information, the question became for us, how does that information impact organization and control? That part of the structure which we look at backers. And we did not necessarily see a way that tax returns would do that, since there was no requirement, unless I'm wrong, there's no requirement for net worth, for example, that tax returns could verify, but we don't seem to be asking for that. So for that reason, that's the reason we proposed the elimination of tax returns. Certainly more information is always better than less, but in this particular case, for us, we narrowed our focus, admittedly narrowed our focus with regard to those issues dealing with ownership and control of and social equity eligibility. And that's why we propose that we eliminate that particular requirement. It seemed to be not necessarily relevant to what the Social Equity Council was charged with.
Councilwoman Gordon, is your hand up for another comment, or was that from previously? Okay. Councilwoman Valeries.
Thank you. A couple points is I do agree with the mission of the council is really focused on the social equity component of it. With that said, though, it's very important that we're protecting those people who are applying through social equity to ensure that the backers that they are partnering with are legitimate and have the confidence and the ability to do what we need them to do. And the tax returns are a really important component of any type of financial or vetting process to that. But I'm not suggesting at all that council ourselves are reviewing those documents. Those documents should be reviewed in the process of the application outside of the Social Equity Council, not within it. But I do believe that they are a very important component of vetting out the people that will be receiving these licenses.
Thank you, Councilwoman Valories. You know, this is one of those situations where there's no easy answers. I respect and appreciate the comments on both sides. I think what brought this to the fore were the social equity applicants or potential social equity applicants who voiced the challenges around finding backers and investors so that they could demonstrate an ability. And I've said many times that the access to capital is the thing that keeps me up at night when it comes to social equity applicants and their need to have resource support. So I don't have the correct answer on this one. I just want to make sure that to the extent possible, as Councilman Jefferson stated, that we are doing what we can to get them the access to capital and support that they're not going to be able to get by walking into a bank until the feds legalize, if they ever do. Councilman Lehman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And listen, I agree with your comment. This, in my opinion, this is not a binary. There's a cost-benefit analysis that needs to be done here. I personally agree with the comments. You rather have the tax returns. It is customary information from backers than not have it. That's been mentioned a couple times. So, my inclination is to say we need it. But to me, the question is, and this gets to, I think, what Councilman Shirley and Councilman Jefferson were mentioning, which I want to dig into a little bit more, is let's assume that we do keep the requirement. Do we really think this impacts behavior of backers, that they wouldn't, bona fide backers would not support social equity applicants, and therefore less people that we want to help, to Councilman Jefferson's point, would be going into this business. So I'm not sure if we have any data on that, or if we have a strong opinion that this requirement is critical, to more bona fide backers or dissuading them for that matter. So I'd love to hear a bit more on that, if people do have any data or strong opinions on it, because to me that's the judgment call we're making.
I do not have data. Councilman Jefferson.
Yeah, just to dovetail on Councilman Lehman's point, I mean, we don't have the data. It's mere speculation, and I think we will have some data after we get through this, this first phase of this operation. I don't discount what Councilwoman Valories and Councilman Gaddis has stated, and Councilwoman Gordon. I think they raise a relevant point. I think it is important. At the same time, I think we have to look, this issue is being raised by social equity applicants. They're concerned. We don't have the resources. $10 million is going to get us somewhere, but it's not going to get us nearly as far as we can go with the backers. The other point is what our attorney has mentioned. The last thing he said, we open ourselves up to litigation. And I'm not too sure we're prepared for that right about now. I don't see the harm in foregoing this criteria for the initial phase, and then we can revisit it in the second phase. But why open ourselves up to litigation? We have no empirical evidence that this sort of stuff, the concerns that our folks are raising, actually happens. We have none of that. And as our attorney stated, DCP is there to vet those cases where there may be situations of bad financial deals, which is what we should be looking for anyway, between the backer and the social equity applicant. That's what we should be looking for. Is this a bad deal for a social equity applicant with this particular backer? And I don't think the tax returns are going to necessarily tell us that. But it will invite a lawsuit, I can tell you that much. And it will prevent social equity applicants from having the financial resources that they need to move forward with their initiative. And I think that's what we should focus on. This is whatever we choose to do, we have to do it in the best interest of the social equity applicant. That's our mission.
Thank you, Councilman Jefferson. I see Attorney Matrivi's hand and I see Councilman Shirley's hand. It just occurred to me though that one of the things that I did ask of CohnReznick was if they could check with their cannabis unit to see if tax returns were required for in other states. And so if I see that Jeff is still on and Serona, so if you all are available and have that information, I did make that request a little while ago, and then I will get to the two hands that I see raised. And also, I just want to clarify also, so in case there's confusion, what we are suggesting is that there not be tax returns required for non-social equity applicants backers. If you are a social equity applicant backer, then we would request that information because we'd need to verify the definition of a social equity applicant.
Hi, I can answer that, Member Comer. So we looked at other programs, and within those programs, they were looking at some other criteria that would require tax returns to be looked at. But as far as the criteria with which the council is looking at for social equity, ownership and control, income, and residency, the tax returns, might help frame the picture, but they wouldn't paint the entire picture. But again, the other entities, other programs, other states that we've looked at, they're doing more of a financial review in some cases, in which the tax returns have been requested. So I hope that helps kind of put that into perspective, what other entities are doing.
Thank you. Attorney Matrivi.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I just also want to point something out, is that the SEC is now vetting the viability of businesses. Like when the social equity applicant and a backer create a business, the Social Equity Council is not vetting whether this business, based on the amount of money that's being put in, whether this business is going to succeed or not. As CohnReznick pointed out, the tax return are now will not paint the entire picture. We're not looking to see how much the backers make. That because it's really not relevant to the mission of the Social Equity Council. What we're looking to see is what is the backer putting in this agreement. How is the social equity applicant getting 65% ownership, and what's going to be the payout from that agreement? I don't condone tax evasion or any other fraudulent activity. However, in this specific case, if we don't need those documents to provide us the information that we need them to provide, then it's really not necessary for us to get those documents from people and spend resources on those documents just for something that we don't really need at all. That's what the fact is. And in addition to that, I don't have data to answer Councilmember Lemon question. I don't have the official data to show how many backers have backed out of deals. I don't have it yet, but based on the feedback that we're getting from the community, a lot of people are having difficulty securing backers because some of these licenses are a little expensive for the average social equity applicant. So that's why we brought us this proposal. I understand everyone's point of view on this. I yield.
Thank you, Attorney Matrivi. Councilman Sherlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to go over where the rationale and of the policy committee, and the issue was looking at when tax returns are generally required. Generally, it's two basic areas. One would be ability to support debt service. So debt service capability is one of the reasons banks use it to verify income, et cetera. And then the other, it would be when a minimum net worth is indicative of some level of sophistication. That's when, federal tax returns are required to verify that, your net worth is X. Let's see that. We are not really asking that in our deliberation. So I just want to lay that out, that that's the reason why we felt it was the rationale to remove it seemed to be acceptable.
Councilman Gaddis.
I have a problem with the way this whole thing is being framed. It's being framed as, we don't need the tax returns, so we shouldn't have them. The bottom line is, listen, I don't know where you people are from, most of you, but I got so many scenarios running through my head as some street money getting into this process. It's about our responsibility, and it's about being smart. It's about being gatekeepers. I'm going to tell you this. If you don't require tax returns, you will have Nino Brown and Pablo Escobar's money in the situation. There's no way around it. You will. And that's what the tax returns do, is let us know that you're legitimate, you're making some paper legally, and as far as your financial means, you acquire them legally. That's where my mind is at. And if someone has a problem with that, then I already question the people who are kind of complaining about giving tax returns. I have to give my tax returns to people all the time. I have no problem with that. You know why? Because I'm not dealing dope. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to have a big problem if you don't require tax returns.
Thank you, Councilman Gaddis. Attorney Matrivi.
My apologies, Madam Chairwoman. I forgot to lower my hand.
No worries, no worries. If there are no further, Councilman Jefferson, yes.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Councilman Jefferson.
I apologize. The problem is you're going to have drug money, even with legal tax returns. You don't know where the money, where a person, that's beside the point. The issue that we're talking about is this matter is being raised by social equity applicants. Now we have to tell the social equity applicants where to go get resources to fund their initiative. Now we have $10 million in that was approved by the bonding committee for them to apply for loans or whatever the case might be. I'm not too clear about that at this point. But other than that, what other resources are we providing to these social equity applicants? They're telling us that their backers do not want to take this next step with them because that criteria exists. And what are we to tell them? we have to have an answer for. And I just don't know what to tell them.
Thank you, Councilman Jefferson. At this point, I am going.
I'd like to make just one additional comment if
Yes.
I may, Chair. I think that any legitimate organization or person would not have any problem providing their tax returns. And so I really don't understand what the big issue is with providing tax returns if you don't have anything to hide. And I think it's a matter of protecting the social equity applicants to ensure that the people that they're going into business with are legitimate.
Councilwoman Shaw.
Thank you, Chairwoman Comer. In listening to the comments, I went back to the enabling legislation. I think that is the ultimate guide. And again, my questions center around what are the areas of responsibility, specifically, what is it that the Social Equity Council is tasked with doing? And the express language of the Act, the Public Act, describes how equity joint ventures must be approved by the Social Equity Council. There's also reference to the elements of an application that may include, and I quote, that may include but need not be limited to. And then there's a recitation of various factors which I believe are intended to get at the adequacy or the viability of the equity joint venture. So there's evidence of business formation. There's the ownership allocation, which are hard-coded limits within the law, terms of ownership and financing, proof of the social equity applicant's involvement. We've talked a lot about making sure that there is meaningful participation of social equity applicants and not an effort to just prop up these straw men where the purposes of the act are frustrated. If we are to truly provide a pathway for meaningful participation in the legal cannabis market for communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the criminalization of marijuana, I believe that central to the Social Equity Council's responsibilities is making sure that these equity joint ventures fulfill that legislative intent. So I disagree with the characterization that we simply check a box, that we don't have a qualitative review of the adequacy or viability of these potential licensees. I believe that evaluating these business structures, taking into account relevant information about the business structure, that is central to this function. I don't think that, and I really do disagree with Attorney Matrebi on how narrowly he's construed this. At the end of the day, the Social Equity Council is tasked with ensuring that there's social equity in this process. And I've rarely heard an argument where less information ends up being in the best interest of those we're trying to serve. And it does raise a red flag if we can't get basic tax information, again, with all of the assurances of confidentiality. I haven't heard a compelling reason why we would.
Thank you, Councilwoman Shaw. At this point, I'm going to call the question, and I will do it by roll because I know that there is not a unanimous vote on this. So the resolution on the floor is to eliminate the requirements of tax returns for non-social equity backers. Or non-social equity applicant backers. Councilwoman Alverio.
No.
Councilman Lehman.
No.
Councilman Gaddis.
Absolutely not.
Councilwoman Gordon.
No.
Councilman Jefferson.
Yes.
Councilwoman Naeem,
Yes.
Councilwoman Shaw.
Pardon me, point of order. Was the motion made and seconded?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I didn't catch that. I would vote no.
Councilman Shirley,
Yes.
Councilwoman Valories,
No.
Councilman Walton,
I'm gonna abstain.
Councilman Pelka.
No.
The motion fails. Thank you all for your thoughtfulness in this deliberation. At this point, we'll be moving forward with our outreach committee. And so I will turn it over to Councilwoman Alberio and Gordon. Councilwoman Shaw, did you have another question or comment?
Okay.
No.
Thank
Okay.
you. Did I lower my hand?
No.
I did now. All right.
No
Thank you.
worries.
Thank you. So our report is fairly short. Director Clay has provided an overview at the top of the meeting in terms of the timeline that is connected with us selecting a marketing and PR firm that will help us move forward with the branding and the educational initiatives that we need in order to make sure that Black and Brown communities are aware of what is going on, what those business opportunities are, and the impact that it has within our communities. We do have our selection committee is made up of, well, she already mentioned this, is Director Clay and Chairwoman
Comer,
Sabir Gordon, and myself. And so that whole conversation was just like, whew. And so we did work together to develop the criteria for the scope of work, keeping in mind that working with an MBE, a minority business enterprise, would be important foundation to our work, and having bilingual and in-culture experience in reaching Black and Brown communities is at the top of our qualifications list, considering that there has been a history of inequities faced in awarding state contracts. We wanted to make sure that we are selecting an agency that really does understand how to reach our communities. So what we did is we sent out, I just want to talk a little bit about the process, is we sent out a questionnaire to the 7 agencies that were listed as MBEs on the state contract list. So all 7 of them received our questionnaire. And the questionnaire was just basic to get some information in terms of their experience, their background, and all of that. Of those 7 questionnaires, we received 5 back. And of the 5, we actually selected I'm sorry, yes, of those 5, we selected 4 agencies that we felt qualified. So we received 4 RFPs, and this week we are going to be using a scoring system that we have come up with to select 2 agencies from that. There's a chance that we may go to 3, but next week we are going to be going through the interview process of those that are selected this week. So we hope that by April 13th, that the agency will be selected. We are really, we feel comfortable in moving quickly with this process. We know what we're looking for. We have the information. And so that agency will be notified by April 14th. They will then make a presentation at our public monthly marketing and outreach meeting, which was moved from the 2nd Friday of the month to accommodate us to April 20th. because it's normally the second Friday of the month. And then that firm will do a brief presentation to the full council on May 3rd, of which you will have an opportunity to ask any questions. I really want to say that I appreciate our new member, Councilman Pelka, for bringing up something that is very important in terms of, for example, us not being able to reach our communities to provide them with the opportunities that are available on licensing. The categories that were mentioned that we have no applications for, the labeling and the retailing and the food and beverage. These are some of the things that we feel this agency can do a good job at in terms of putting together a business opportunity campaign, for example, to get that word out. We must find every avenue available to us to reach these communities with this information, not just the business opportunities, but the educational initiatives that go along with that. And so we hope that this could be part of that process. Once we present to the full council on May 3rd, the contract will then be executed and the start date for the agency will be on May 13th. And that completes my report. Sabira, did you have anything to add on that? I know she's I know she's traveling. So.
No, I'm good. I think that was really good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions?
Okay. Hearing none, thank you both. I now turn it over to the Governance Committee and Councilwoman Naeem.
Thank you so much. So a couple of updates on the governance side. You all should have received from Chairwoman Coomer a request to complete a interim executive director review. We request that you get that done by April 13th. If there are any challenges to completing it or any questions that arise, please let the two of us know. I'm happy to talk through that. And then next council meeting, we will have an executive session to relay the findings of the assessment. Any questions on that? The second governance item, you should have received an email from Attorney McTravy regarding some policies and procedures on appointments to the council, and if you are having someone sort of step in for you, what the process should be, as well as who to have on different distribution lists. Attorney McTravy, if you're still with us, would you like to just quickly address that and make sure there's no questions on it?
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Ojala. So the reason why this policy is being proposed is to make sure that we keep account for all members that are joining the council and all the members that are leaving the council for the purpose of documenting for the Attorney General's office and also for ethics reasons. As we know, the Public Act 21-1, Section 51, actually create an ethic policy, which means 2 years after you all have served on this council, you have to wait for 2 years before you can apply for social equity applicant status, send in an application or be a backer, anything to deal with the cannabis industry. So this policy will allow us to document when people are joining the council and when people are resigning. That way we are able to count the time as well. Now, the second portion of this policy will just make sure that during communications between the council and the staff, that other people who are not authorized, that could be assistants or aides that work for the members of the council in their other businesses, who the members of the council have authorized to receive meeting agenda and all the public documents on their behalf. But we just want to make sure that whenever confidential council information is being circulated, whether it is a personnel file for a prospective employee of the council, or since you just brought up the review of the executive director, anything that is personal and sensitive matter or confidential matter is not being sent to people who have not been properly introduced into the council as a member or as a designee or as a staff. So that's what this policy is about. I yield. Thanks.
Any questions for Attorney Travy on that? Councilwoman Shaw?
Thank you. Is this a practice followed by any other state board or commission?
Thank you, Councilwoman. I believe every organization has a policy regarding distribution of sensitive documents and regarding appointment and nomination of members. So in every organization, I believe in every state agency, when you're resigning from the organization, you have to submit a letter to the chair of that organization or the commissioner or the executive director. So we just want to make sure we have that crystallized and on paper. That way, we are just able to document everything properly. So whenever someone, a member of the council, is sued, for instance, after 6 months after leaving the council, we need to clearly say that, okay, from this time, this point of time to the other point of time, he was a member of the council and he was acting on behalf of the council. Therefore, he should be represented by the Attorney General. So this allows us to just keep track of everything like that.
All right, just to comment, in my experience, serving as a designee on a number of state boards for a number of years, I've never seen a policy like this. I think that the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act have been explained to these members. I appreciate the attention and care to this, but when I asked about precedent, it was because I had never quite seen this before. So if this represents a new direction for this council, that's fine. Just it represents a new set of standards.
Any other questions? Chairwoman Comer, do we need to vote on this? I mean, it's, I know we've been getting the letters for clarity on appointments, but I don't know if that is something we need to vote on.
Actually going to defer to our attorney on this.
You're on mute.
I can't hear you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Sorry. I believe to make this the policy of the Social Equity Council, you're going to have to call for a vote.
Okay. Call for a vote to approve the process for appointment and resignation.
You need a motion first.
I'll make a motion. David Lehman.
Second, Ed Shirley.
Someone lay out the motion, please.
I'm happy to lay it out unless Ajala, you wanted to go in, but was to approve the the hiring and firing process that was Ajala mentioned previously that we want to codify.
Appointment and resignation of council members onto the Social Equity Council.
I simplified it there. Appointment and resignation docket.
Further discussion?
So this motion also extends to communication between council members and their staff, correct? In addition to appointment and resignation. just to more fully state the ambit of the motion, correct?
That's correct.
That's all I have.
Attorney Matrevi, can you just recap that motion for the full council so we have a clear understanding?
Yes. So it should be a motion for the appointment and designation of members of the council, for a motion for the policy on the appointment designation of the members of the council and correspondence of the council, Social Security Council, to be adopted as policy of the Social Security Council.
All right, so we have
That
a
should be
motion and a
the
second.
motion.
Any further discussion? Chairwoman, do you want to call the vote? On.
Sure. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, I oppose. I oppose.
One opposed?
I
Any
abstain.
And one abstention.
Abstain.
Two abstentions.
3. We've got Kevin abstaining as well.
Okay. Councilman Walton abstaining.
I'm also not sure I understand this at all. So I don't know if I should be voting. I don't want to vote no, but I'm super confused. I think I probably should just abstain because I'm a little confused about this whole
Also
process.
abstain.
Okay, so 4 abstentions. Thank you. Move on to the Ad Hoc Accelerator Committee. Councilwoman Naeem.
Thank you. You all should have received, as part of the document shared out by Executive Director, the sort of Accelerator Rfp Draft. So this is again in draft form. Attorney Matrevi, Executive Director January has been working on making sure we've got everything included following the legislative requirements for the Accelerator program. I have not received any questions, comments, or concerns as requested yet, but wanted to bring it to everyone's attention as it stands. We'd like to have this approved by the council to go out. The timeline we're looking at following is listed within the actual draft itself, but looking to have this out by April 11th with proposals due May 5th. Are there any questions on the draft?
I had just one question. I didn't under item 3, RFP purpose, there's a statement on the 4th line, social equity account, which will oversee the verification of equity cannabis applicants.
Do you mind just sharing what, okay, I got it.
I just didn't know what that meant.
That is, I believe, how the legislation describes the establishment of the Social Equity Council and the council's responsibilities, which is to oversee the verification of equity cannabis applicants.
Okay.
So we'd like to have a vote on this to approve so that the executive director can work with DCD to get this out in time for April 11th. Do we have a motion on the table?
So moved.
Second.
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 Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? Councilman Walton is abstaining. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Councilwoman Naeem. Last but not least, we have our Workforce Committee. I turn it over to Councilwoman Valories.
Thank you. The Workforce Committee did not meet this month. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 20th from 2 to 3. In that meeting, we will be discussing the criteria for the workforce development plans to approve those plans. So we'll be putting together a rubric and discussing the criteria in that meeting. And that is the end of my report.
Fantastic. Any questions? All righty. At this time, we will turn to the public speaking portion of our meeting. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to speak and will be called on in the order in which they signed up. Members who did not sign up will not be called. We will start with Luis Vega.
Mr. Vega?
Hey, how's it going? They just promoted me up.
Yeah, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Luis Vega. My address is 49 Quinnipiac Avenue, North Haven, Connecticut, as well as 141 North High Street, Bridgeport, Connecticut. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for everything that you guys really do. You have a whole lot of things on your plate, and you really have pushed forward into.
She's what?
Jenny Ray, can you mute yourself? Go ahead, Mr. Vega. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate everybody. I really appreciate everything that was put out there. The presentations were very informative, and they really do answer a lot of questions that we've had. Now that we know what the process is, do we know what the timeline will be for us to start reviewing some of those initial applications? And if so, do you know which categories you'll probably be going through first? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vega. If you could send your question to sec@ct.gov, we will be able to provide a response for that.
I appreciate that. I did send those questions as well, so I just wanted to bring them up. So I look forward to speaking to you guys. I really do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Next is Lou Rinaldi.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Lou Rinaldi, 201 Water Street in Guilford. I'm a medical patient in the state of Connecticut. To Councilwoman Shaw's earlier point about transparency, shout out to Councilwoman Shaw. Frankly, I can't even believe that any of you were entertaining the idea of not requiring tax returns from equity backers. That's giving the game away in plain sight. And I scoff at Councilman Jefferson's assertion that DCP can be trusted to vet backers. Ask any patient in the medical program how much they trust DCP to do the right thing in any scenario. Maybe you've seen some local news articles about this recently. I also can't believe you hire a staff attorney for the council and the first words out of his mouth are, "We don't need to collect tax returns from social equity backers." That's unreal. The application fees are too high, so rather than lower them, we want to make it easier for backers to exploit social equity applicants. I never thought I would agree with Councilman Gaddis, but here we are. Thank you for speaking up so emphatically on that point. I do have a solution for you, Councilman Jefferson. There are better ways to ensure a true social equity outcome in our state that doesn't even require backers, and I'll get to that in a minute. But first, I think given recent events involving the council's former finance committee member, Melissa McCaw, and especially since we have some new members on the council, I'm calling on all council members to voluntarily and proactively disclose their own conflicts of interest that might adversely impact their ability to deliver on the promise of true social equity in Connecticut. The corruption surrounding cannabis in our state government has been well documented in local and national news media since December 2021. I encourage any council member unfamiliar with what I'm speaking about to contact me directly for more details or to read those articles for themselves. Now, on to that solution I mentioned. You know, we have micro cultivator licenses. We have some extremely high demand for them that's not reflected in the data that you showed earlier. The problem is the barriers to entry are too high. What is the issue with just opening up micro cultivator and possibly other licenses to anyone who can come up with a reasonable application fee, get municipal approval to operate out of a correctly zoned property, and then just give them a license and let them work? I mean, that's not only how you create true social equity, that's how you create a craft cannabis market in Connecticut. And that's also how you solve the root cause of the gifting dilemma that's currently being addressed by HB 5329. We can still do the right thing here, and it doesn't have to mean keeping exorbitant application fees and boxing people out of the market. Rather than collecting fines of $2,500 to $6,000 at a clip for the gifting stuff, why not just give people the license and have a recurring revenue stream on that tax revenue for every single micro cultivator license?
Mr. Rinaldi, your 3 minutes are up.
All right, I'm ready to answer any questions that council members may have, or if anyone would like to disclose their conflicts of interest proactively. Anyone want to say anything about that? Because I know you all got some feelings on it.
Thank you, Mr. Rinaldi.
All right, good talk.
Next, we have Emily Sabo. Emily Sabo.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Emily Sabo and my address is 6 Hyde Road, Farmington, Connecticut. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Comer, Executive Director Clay, and esteemed members of the Social Equity Council. I am the organizing director with the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, the UFCW Local 919. Together with Local 371, we are the Connecticut Cannabis Union, and across the state, we represent over 14,000 working families. For over a decade now, the UFCW has been working to ensure that unionized cannabis careers would come with a living wage, healthcare, vacation, sick time, training, secure retirement, and of course, a voice on the job. Unionized cannabis careers allow young professionals within the community the opportunity to join the middle class. We now represent tens and thousands of cannabis workers across the US, including California, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Missouri, Illinois, Rhode Island, and Washington, DC. I know I've mentioned in testimony in the past the importance of labor peace agreements and union contracts and how they play an important role in reparative justice for workers that have been disproportionately affected by cannabis prohibition because they provide an equal opportunity to all workers. Labor peace agreements give workers a chance at having a union and, more importantly, a voice in the workplace. Union contracts guarantee fair wage increases to all workers, as well as protection from unfair treatment, discrimination, or discipline. Today, I would like to again stress the importance of not only the labor peace agreement, but a labor peace agreement signed with a credible union. We've seen too often in other states employers who sign an LPA with a fake union or a union not experienced in the industry just to check a box. This defeats the purpose of the legislation created to level the playing field and create worker equity in the cannabis industry. We urge the council to exercise caution when granting licenses to operators who have not yet signed a labor peace agreement with a bona fide labor union. As always, thank you for your time and dedication to creating this new industry in the most equitable way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sabo. Jeffrey Kivlin. Mr. Kivlin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
My name's Jeffrey Kivlin, 85 Stoner Drive, West Hartford, Connecticut. My original question had been answered so thoughtfully throughout this presentation. And I would just like to add one comment with the concerns that were brought up about finding the financing for the social equity applicants, the money is out there. The money is scared though with that 65%. That's a big ask for somebody to drop millions on it and give up complete control. And you hear people talking about dropping tax returns. If you want more money in the game, that's the quick, easy way. If you were to just drop that a little bit to maybe even 50-50, I bet a lot more money would come into it. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Kivlin. Aaron Doolittle. Ms. Doolittle, yeah. Ms. Doolittle?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Right, so I'm here once again today to kind of address some of the issues going on in the medical community. I'm a therapist. My name's Erin Doolittle. My address is 117 Conway Road, Manchester, Connecticut. I've been a provider in the medical program for about 8 years. And with regard to the HB 5329, Section 2 banning on gifting and donating of cannabis, I just wanted to, put it out there that your guys' role here is so important. These are the communities that you are seeking to protect and help and support throughout this process. I am blown away to hear that there has not been a single food and beverage application for social equity. I do believe Lou Rinaldi had a great point. Individual micro licenses, specifically for microcultivation and or caregivers. The state of Maine and Massachusetts have caregiver licenses for individuals who are interested in working with patients directly, delivery, education, support, things like that. That sort of license, such a micro license, is something a lot more approachable to members of the community who may have been impacted by the war on drugs most harshly. So my request is that you help us, hold off on this ban until these things can be properly managed. It's been a very quick sort of a kicking reaction. We don't like this, it's over, we want our tax money. And we know that it's about the tax money that the state's most concerned with. And the thing is, our community has paid and paid and paid. We want our lives back. We want our time, our money, time spent with families back, employment status, housing status, discrimination, voting status. We want our mental health back. Recognize that every single sentence ever handed out is a life sentence. Just because someone was in there for only a couple of months doesn't mean that it only lasted a couple of months. Their lives are permanently changed. And the gifting market is where they're able to get a foothold in the cannabis community and industry and learn a little bit about how to create a business, how to work with the public, what's expected. And so we're asking you to protect these at-risk communities. These are your people. This is, who you're here to help and protect and be there for. And this very sudden, crashing change to things is going to harm the exact communities we're trying to help. And it's going to get the exact communities who don't need to get paid more and allow them to have an inappropriate, I think, space in our community. So, I'm really sort of calling on you to know that this is happening and to understand that we will happily apply for caregiver licenses, micro licenses. We want to be legit. This is a community that is not a community of criminals. Turning these people into criminals is not the answer. And I just feel that you have a uniquely important
Ms.
role.
Doolittle, your time is up.
I think that is all I kind of had to say. So thank you so much. As always, I appreciate your work. I appreciate your time. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions or reach out to me at any point.
Thank you. Eileen Kopek.
Mute. I just got unmuted. Thank you very much. I was just unmuted. Thank you very much. Thanks, first of all, for having this meeting on. It was interesting to watch and see the progress that you folks are making. I mainly wanted to talk with you a little bit, and I know that this isn't your primary concern, but I've noticed that in the medical field, I'm a medical patient. The environmental impact of packaging and production, it's a real problem, and it doesn't seem to be much of a focus for some of the new businesses that we're going to have. And I mean, with the legal market, it's just going to get worse. The disposable vapes and e-cigarettes. I know the e-cigarettes don't have to do with cannabis, but they contribute a lot to environmental pollution and things like that. So those were my main concerns. As far as the delivery things, maybe some electric vehicles, that would be a good thing to kind of maybe get people who wouldn't necessarily be involved, get involved. And I know the state and Eversource are offering incentives to have businesses that have those methods of transportation. As far as the gifting thing goes, I'm a medical patient who has not been able to take advantage of the gifting things, but it does seem that there are some patients out there who are actually getting products in the gifting that they can't get in the medical market right now for a number of reasons. The final thing is, I'm glad that Department of Consumer Protection communicates with you guys, because they do not communicate with us. Thank you very much for your work, and I'm going to try to check out some more of these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kopek. Cassidy Irwin.
I do not see her name in the list. Cassidy Irwin, if you'd raise your hand, if you'd like to take your spot.
Okay, let's
Maybe
move
let's
on.
move on. Yeah.
Charles Cohn.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I have a bit of an echo.
Okay, I just have one quick question, and I'm just wondering if you've applied through the e-license website in Connecticut as an individual cannabis backer, and you're applying as a social equity applicant, are you going to let that person or persons know prior to any of the application deadlines whether they have qualified or not as a social equity applicant?
Mr. Cohn, if you can email your question to dcp.cannabis@ct.gov, that would be very helpful. That way we can document your question and the response.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Denise Sullivan.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Denise Sullivan, and my address is 190 Torrey Road, Tallinn, Connecticut. And I want to thank you all for your time today and all of your work and effort. And I'm recently retired, and I was concerned about House Bill 5329, and I had testified at that hearing and was happy that wording was changed to take the criminal aspect out of it. I feel that this bill does target our social equity community. And I think that one of the problems is that that community doesn't have really a source. I think a lot of these people that are participating in these bazaars are people that would not be worried about the income calculator, but very concerned about the $500 equity fee. I know that a lot of them may not even own automobiles, and they live in the communities that we are trying to help. I think that there's a market that we need to help them with. One of the suggestions at the hearing was that the towns would be able to regulate and issue permits for these types of fairs. I think that these people really want to be legal and they want to move forward in craft cannabis sales, cottage sales, caregiver licensing. These are small little businesses that people are just trying to really succeed in life with. And I think that it's really important that we try to help them to be legal. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Christina Capitan.
Good afternoon, respected members of the Social Equity Council. Thank you for having me. My name is Christina Capitan. My address is 123 Melrose Road, Broadbrook, Connecticut. I am a longtime medical cannabis patient and a community advocate with no current financial interest. I am someone who could qualify as an equity applicant in the adult use market, but I will not pursue a license at this time due to multiple barriers and obvious inequities within the current framework. I do believe that many in my position feel the same. I wanted to take a moment to comment in this meeting in an effort to bring more awareness to a bill that has passed through the General Law Committee, which included some of the recommendations from this council and awaits a vote in the House. HB 5329 includes a section, Section 2, that if passed as written will penalize gifting in certain settings. I would like to know if this council will be supporting this bill as written, or if they will stand with the individuals they are aiming to empower through the council. I would like to remind the council that if this bill does pass, it will negatively impact potential future equity applicants, as well as some of the most vulnerable population in the communities in Connecticut, such as veterans and medical cannabis patients who have come to rely upon gifting during a time of crisis within our own medical cannabis program. What I really would like to ask that you open up the conversation with these potential equity applicants who will be affected by some of the recommendations made by the legislature and the General Law Committee in the interest of protecting the communities that we are trying to support. We would like you to stand with us against any criminalization and penalization of the gifting of cannabis or donation of cannabis without any current alternative, accessible, and fair framework being put into place to support the consumers and future social equity applicants. My request of you is to please address this and to stand with the community that we are hoping to support and empower to become owners and operators in this state. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Capitan. Okay, that concludes our public speaking portion. There is no further business for the good of the order. I will request a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.